Today is Theme Deck Tuesday, the series in which I take a old theme deck, review it and have some battles with it and let you know how I get on. This week I'm going to be having a look at the Hydro Fury deck featuring Swampert, so be sure to subscribe down below if you haven't already and you'd like to see more of these videos, or if you are already subscribed, be sure to leave a comment down below with a theme deck that you would like to see in the future, or if it's one that I've covered already, perhaps you would like me to go ahead and revisit it. Now let's get into the deck profile for Hydro Fury here. This has got to be one of my favourite decks for just how well put together it is, because all of the cards synergize with each other perfectly, as you'll see in the deck profile here. Now of course the star of the show this time around is Swampert. Now the stats on this guy, pretty good overall. 160 HP on a stage 2 is pretty good, and the ability here, Power Draw, allows you to discard a card from your hand and then draw 3 cards from the top of your deck. So fantastic consistency, and we do have 2 of these Swampert in the deck, so you can actually get both up and start drawing 6 cards per turn, which is insane. And we also have a bunch of other combo cards along with this, as you'll see, but the attack here is also one that's going to be seen a lot of use out of, because it is the main attacker as well as the draw engine. Hydro Pump does a reasonable amount of damage, because if you have 3 energy on here, you deal a total of 140. It is 80 plus 20 for each energy attached to this Pokemon, so you can go above 140 and start dealing 160 or even 180 damage if you need to in some situations against some of the stage 2 Pokemon. But like I mentioned, we have some great synergy here with Cargo. It has the smooth over ability, which allows you to search your deck for a card and then you put that card on top of your deck. So that combos with the Swampert, because we're able to put a card onto our deck and immediately draw it if we have Swampert into play. But if we get the Cargo down early and we just need to draw that particular card, then we have plenty of supporters to do that with, like our Lily, our Professor Kukui, or even How will allow us to draw that card that we put on the top of our deck. The set of Pokemon that we also have in this deck are phenomenal, as we have the Dunsparce here, which has Strike and Run, which is great for getting you set up, as you're able to search your deck for 3 basic Pokemon and immediately put them onto your bench. And also Sudden Flash can be useful at times if you need a little bit of extra damage, as well as potentially a paralysis to slow down your opponent. And we even have the Furfrou here, which deals 20 damage and can allow you to draw cards until you have 5 cards in your hand. Not always the best at drawing, as your hand is often bigger than 5, so you won't get the most amount of use out of this, but dealing that 20 damage for 1 energy is actually pretty useful. And then further to that, with our support Pokemon, we have the Delcatty here, which has Search for Friends, an ability which allows you to get 2 support cards out of your discard pile, something that we do not see enough of in the theme deck format, and this is great for getting you back those supporter cards, mostly being Professor Kukui, so that you can get towards knockouts a lot easier. And then finishing it off for our Pokemon here, we have a Abomasnow, a couple of these, as its ability allows you to get energy from your discard pile onto your bench Pokemon, any that you like. And this is great for honestly just setting itself up, as it does have quite a high attack cost and only deals 80 damage, but you can potentially put your opponent to sleep. And then we also have a copy of Rotom. Not the best attack overall, but it does only attack for 2 energy, and it does scale based on the amount of energy your opponent has attached to their Pokemon, so it's pretty good in terms of overall damage. For the most part, you are going to be attacking with the Swampert or the Abomasnow, as they deal the most amount of damage, as well as the Swampert of course being your consistency. But if we have a look at the trainer cards, as I mentioned, this is the most insane, most consistent synergistic set of Pokemon and trainers I have seen in a theme deck. We have a huge variety of the supporter cards here. We have Apricorn Maker, which allows you to get cards with the name Ball in it, so Ultra Ball, Nest Ball, all the different ball search cards we have in the deck. We also have a copy of Copycat, a copy of Copycat, yes I know, but this allows you to shuffle and draw, which is great based on your opponent's hand. We have How, as always. We also have Lady to search out energy, Lily for that initial draw, or when we have a small hand. We've got Professor Kukui, like I mentioned, to deal that extra damage and also get the additional draw. And we have Tate and Lisa so that we can shuffle and draw as well, and it acts as a switch. And to top it off for the supporters, we do have the Masked Royal, which allows us to accelerate an energy from our hand onto a stage 2 Pokemon that we have. So of course it's going to be Swampert, which is great because we have a Abomasnow as well to accelerate energy. So it comes in super useful for getting a Swampert out of nowhere, because we can attach energy, use the Masked Royal, and use Abomasnow to get 3 energy into play onto a Swampert and start swinging with it. And like I said, we have a bunch of ball switch cards, so Timer Ball, Ultra Ball, we even have a Lure Ball in here, which gets evolutions out of the discard pile. We also have a Rescue Stretcher, which shuffles Pokemon back into the deck, so lots of great item cards. As long as you can draw reasonably with this deck and you have some consistently good hands, then this deck will steamroll over every other Steam deck. And for the most part, you are just using it to hit for weakness on Charizard decks, let's be honest, but regardless of that stuff, as long as you can get a consistent setup, you should be good against pretty much every matchup, apart from ones that perhaps hit you for weakness like the grass decks, but even then you have some options as you do have the alternative attackers here. Now let's get into some matches, see how we get on, and see if we can get that consistency on our side this time around. Game 1 with Hydro Fury here. We don't have the best of starts, but we at least have a Nest Ball that we can at least put into play. We'll grab us our Mudkip here so that we can at least get the evolution down on the following turn, and I might as well start attaching energy as well, so we'll put one onto the Mudkip. Since we are up against a fire deck, we're going to be able to take advantage of that weakness and water tightening that we have. My opponent giving us a little faith there as well, so they definitely know what's coming, and we can start working towards our Swampert here as quickly as possible. Like I said, we have the evolution. I think we're just going to continue to attach energy onto here as well, and we can go for the Copycat since I don't really want any of these cards, and we can get the same amount of cards in our hand as our opponent. And that certainly works out for us as we get a bunch of great basics here, and we also have the Timer Ball that we can make use of, so I think we will just pass it over to my opponent for now. We'll hold on to the Timer Ball for the following turn, where we should hopefully get a Swampert out of it, which would be ideal. And if we can also draw into a switch, that would be even better, because then we can start taking knockouts with said Swampert. That'd be great. But let's see, my opponent is looking to get a Charizard set up as quickly as possible on their end, but they are attaching onto the Slugma here, so they're wanting to attack with the Cargo, which is very interesting, not something that you typically go for, and they are just continuing to build up their hand size with the Sudowoodo. Let's go for the Timer Ball, see if we get some heads off of this. We do get 1 and 2 heads, that is awesome. We'll take the Skitty, I think, and we'll also take the Swampert, of course. Looks like we have prized the Swampert, which is a little unfortunate. Could also take the Abomasnow as well, but we'll just go for the Skitty so that we get the extra supporters into our hand here. Also evolve the Swampert, make use of that first by discarding the energy here. Like I said, if we'd got the Abomasnow, then we could have comboed it, discarding energy and then getting it back with the Abomasnow, but I kind of like getting the Skitty first of all. I think we'll go ahead and play the Professor Kukui, but we won't get any use out of the damage side of things. We'll just use it to draw those extra couple of cards and then evolve into the Pokemon here so that we get our supporters back. I say Skitty, I meant Delcatty. Of course, Skitty is the basic here, so yeah, Delcatty is the one that gets us our supporters, and we're going to start attaching energy onto our bench here so that we get a secondary attacker powered up. We'll attach onto the Snover, and we will just pass it over to my opponent as there's not really much else that I want out of this hand, and could hold on to the Ultra Ball for the following turn so that my opponent doesn't know that we have it, but there's no way of them disrupting our hand anyway, so shouldn't be too much of a problem. Now we are just holding out as soon as we put up our Swampert to start attacking, my opponent's likely going to put up that Magcargo, which is definitely a threat. because it can deal a lot of damage once they're able to get all of the energy onto it. So we want a backup attacker here ready to go for when that does inevitably happen. Let's use our Macargo, and we can get a card onto the top of our deck. We'll get that Abomasnow now. There's not too much that we want, but the Abomasnow is definitely a good Pokemon to have here. And we'll discard the Dunsparce in order to draw into said Abomasnow. That's going to give us some extra energy attachments here, and they'll definitely go onto itself as it is a reasonable attacker when we are hitting for weakness. And we can also attach one onto the Swampert, that seems fine. Let's see here, we could go for the switch with our rotating Lisa, start attacking my opponent. They don't have an attacker ready just yet, since the Macargo is an energy away from being able to attack, but if they do have the bead in their hand, that is going to allow them to get the knockout. But I think it is a risk that I am willing to take here, so we're going to go for it and switch out to our Swampert and start swinging away and taking some prize cards here. Hopefully this puts us in a good position to win against my opponent, and like I said, as long as they don't have the energy plus the beads, we should be fine, because the Macargo here, as I mentioned, does 180 damage for 4 energy. So if they are able to get the energy onto there, then they will be able to easily knock out our Swampert in just one hit, and that's definitely something that we don't want happening. We want to be able to keep our Swampert around for as long as possible, as it is the primary attacker as well as being the main draw engine of the deck. Being one of the best draw engines in the theme deck format, I would have to say, considering how consistent it is, and the fact that you also have Smooth Over that you can make use of with the Macargo here. My opponent is choosing to attach onto the Charmeleon though that they just evolved into, so just going to be hitting us for 20 damage with their Yanma. That is a buff because of the weakness there, but we don't mind that too much, as we should be able to go through our opponent pretty easily. Let's go ahead and attach onto our Abomasnow once again, and we can also make use of the lady that we drew off of the prize cards. That's going to get us a bunch of energy into our hand. We'll take the fire energy just for the sake of it. We don't really need it right now, but we'll take it anyway. And we'll also play the Smooth Over, putting a card on top of our deck here. I think we'll get the Evolution. We could also get the Rotom, start attaching there, but we'll get the Evolution so that if we get the Swampert off of the prizes, then we'll be able to get that into play nice and easily. Or also if we get a Rescue Stretcher at any point, then we can make use of that too. So we'll draw our 3 cards and definitely get our Evolution down. We still have the Ultra Ball as well if we want to make use of that at any point, but I'm holding on to it for a particular situation that might arise. Definitely want to hold on to it for now. We could also switch, but we don't have another attacker set up just yet, so we'll just hit into my opponent and get another prize card off of them. So yeah, a bit of a shame that my Abomasnow isn't quite ready. Definitely would prefer to be attacking with that rather than our Swampert, but it is still very good that we can steamroll our opponent right here, as they're not able to get a knockout on us unless they get the Charizard and the Leons that they need in order to deal enough damage to actually get the knockout here. They have the Battle Sense that they are able to make use of, but not discarding any Leon. They could still play Leon though from their hand. That would certainly make it so that they are in fact dealing enough damage, but of course they do still need the energy to actually attach onto the Charizard to get the attack off as well. So we'll have to see if my opponent has any combination of those. Looks like they do have it as they're retreating, and there it is, they have the Leon in their hand. Very unfortunate, but that's just how it goes sometimes. My opponent had absolutely everything that they needed in order to finish off our Swampert, and that damage from the Yanma definitely coming in clutch that they did that previous turn. We'll promote our Abomasnow here since we are able to do a substantial amount of damage with it. And we can actually get the one-hit knockout. With the weakness we are dealing 160 damage, but we also have the Professor Kukui to increase that damage further, and that's definitely what we're going to be going for here. Let's use our Smooth Over so that we can get a card to the top of our deck. definitely going to be taking the rescue stretcher here so we can get our Swampert back, and then we can make use of our Professor Kukui to draw our 2 cards, one of course being the rescue stretcher. We'll attach onto the Abomasnow, use our rescue stretcher to shuffle in 3 cards, and we're just going to put back the entire Swampert line here. No reason not to, as we can then use our Ultra Ball to discard a couple of cards and get Swampert into our hand. So let's go with the 2 energy, since we do have quite a lot of energy in our hand. Don't mind discarding some of those, and we can get our Swampert back into play just like that, nice and easily, and we can even draw a couple of extra cards as well. I think we'll go and discard the Copycat, since my hand is quite a bit bigger than my opponent, so we're not going to be needing this Copycat here. And there we go, my opponent concedes, as there's no way that they're going to win that matchup. They see the writing on the wall. We're hitting for too much damage, we're getting the one-hit knockouts and going ahead in that match, and that's exactly what you want when you are hitting for a weakness with this deck. Let's get into the next match. Here we are in game 2, hitting it off with another fire type deck, the other Charizard deck, Relentless Flame. Now, looks like we did give my opponent quite a couple of mulligans here, and we definitely don't have the best of starts. So we pretty much don't have any basic Pokemon that we can work with. Plenty of evolutions, but no basic Pokemon this time around. I think we are going to have to resort to using our Tate and Lisa. Hopefully that will give us an energy as well as a couple of useful cards that we can play out in order to make the most out of our first roll here. That will allow us to draw a couple of cards if we are able to discard some cards or play some cards out of our hands. That would be ideal. My opponent does have the Farfetch'd here, so they have an ideal start, especially since they've got down the early Ponyta as well as the Charmander. We do top deck a Nest Ball, which is very nice. Definitely take advantage of that to grab ourselves the basics that we need. I think we'll go for the Swampert line first of all. It's not Swampert, but you know, Mudcut to go into the Swampert evolution line. All that good stuff, you know what I mean. Let's go ahead, Tate and Lisa, see if we can get into an energy card here. And we do indeed get it, as well as a switch, which is not ideal. Only going to be drawing 1 card off of the fourth row, but at least when we are drawing cards, we're also dealing 20 damage. So that is something that we have an advantage over our opponent with. And we do also top deck the Professor Kukui, which could potentially come in clutch against the Farfetch'd here to get a knockout on it that a little bit faster. My opponent does have the double evolutions back there though, getting down that Rapidash, which is going to be extremely annoying to deal with when it starts using agility. And now they are going to be working towards that Nidoqueen line, which of course helps them get their consistency up by searching out all of their Pokemon that they need. They do get the heads on the timer wall as well, which is going to allow them to get the Charizard. And it looks like my opponent's actually forgotten to use the Farfetch'd. They could have drawn an extra 2 cards there, which they've chosen not to do. Definitely not what you want happening. Let's go ahead and use our Professor's Kukui, I think. Definitely want that extra damage down, and we also get the Snover, which is reasonable. And I will once again get to draw 1 card, but we are dealing 40 damage this time around, so we're a little bit closer to getting a knockout on the Farfetch'd. But I think we're going to have to deal with that Rapidash pretty soon. Otherwise it's going to be the Charizard, as they do have that available to them. They could always just retreat into the Charizard and start taking knockouts if they really wanted to, as we're not in a position at all where we could respond to that. My opponent is going to be evolving and using that Roaring Resolve ability, as I just mentioned. That's getting 2 energy onto themselves, but looks like instead of attacking with it, they are just going to be continuing to draw. They do remember to use the Farfetch'd this time around, which is definitely going to help them out. Let's continue to attach onto our Swampert line here. We want that set up as quickly as possible so that we can get into our Swampert. Looks like we're not going to be able to draw any cards though, which is rather unfortunate, but at least we are dealing 20 damage, which is going to get us a knockout on the Farfetch'd and give us the first prize card of the game. Just getting into another Snover though, which is not going to help us out, and now my opponent promotes the Rapidash, which is going to be dealing 20 damage, not 20 damage, 6 damage with the agility, but also if they flip heads, they are going to be immune. So even our pitiful 20 damage is not going to be dealing anything if they're immune to us, which is rather unfortunate. We do have the Copycat along with the Needle Queen there, which is going to refresh their hand and also allow them to get any Pokemon that they want. A little bit of a misstep from my opponent, as they definitely should have searched out a Pokemon first before shuffling their hand into their deck. That would have thinned it out, giving them some better draws. So that's definitely some good advice for you guys if you're wanting to play that deck. My opponent does flip Tails though, which is very good. It means that we are able to deal some damage to them. Not that it's going to be all that relevant, since we're not able to actually get any cards out of our hand. We can start attaching onto the Snovers, I guess. And yeah, there's not much point in retreating or switching and retreating, because then we're going to be losing energy attachments if we start doing that. So we'll just hit into our opponent for 20 and not be able to draw any cards at this point. So like I mentioned, the Swampert, with its ability of being able to draw those 3 cards, having that amount of consistency is really what makes this deck, as well as even just having the McCargo with Smooth over, that keeps your consistency up so much. And when you don't have those 2 things, it's going to be very difficult for you to get set up, and that's exactly what's happening here. As you can see, my opponent is able to get set up on their end and start going through our board pretty quickly here. Now we're going to be forced to go into a Snover, I think, deal a little bit of damage with that. We don't want to sacrifice our Swampert line just yet in case we draw into it. We do top deck the Abomasnow so we can at least get the energy back out of the discard pile that we lost and start powering up the Abomasnow. The other option, of course, is just attaching to the active and start swinging with it. My opponent is only dealing 60, so we would survive a hit, and who knows, maybe they'll get Tails again. So let's go with that, and we'll hit into them for our 40 damage. My opponent does have 40 HP left, so if they do get a Tails here, once again we should be able to get a knockout with our Snover. But of course, if my opponent, yep, there we go, gets the Professor's Kukui, they are going to be able to hit us for 80 damage and get a one-hit knockout on our Snover. Very unfortunate. I think we may be forced to get our Furfrou back out of the discard pile with this Rescue Stretcher. Of course, we have the switch in our hand and the energy that's necessary in order to attack with it. So I think we'll be going for that route so that we can at least have some consistency here. Really wasting our energy attachments by doing this, but we don't have a lot of options. We do top deck the How. Let's see what 3 cards we get. Another How and another Mudkip. Bit of an unfortunate draw really, as we want to get something a bit better. And yeah, even if we play out the switch and the Rescue Stretcher as well as an energy, that's going to take us down to 4 cards in our hand. That's not ideal for a Furfrou, only drawing 1 card. My opponent gives us a hello, yes I'm still here, thank you. I think we'll switch into the Mudkip, attach onto the Abomasnow and pass it over to my opponent. Really nothing else that we can do for it, as like I said, the value of just attaching in order to draw 1 card off of Furfrou is not worth it in this situation, because we want to be powering up attackers that we can actually deal damage with and get knockouts with, and Furfrou is definitely not that for us right now. My opponent does have the Needle Queen set up here, opting to retreat into it so they can start taking some big and easy knockouts with the Needle Queen, as it is going to be doing a lot of damage since all of their Pokemon are evolution Pokemon. They are just passing it back over to us since they don't have the necessary energy just yet, so did that a little bit preemptively, but it's going to work out for them anyway since we're just hanging out here, not doing a whole lot ourselves either. We'll continue to attach onto our Abomasnow. We also do have the Ultra Ball. I'll play out the Ultra Ball, discarding the Dunsparce and the Fire Energy. That's going to get us into the Swampert at the very least, and start increasing our consistency, which is very much needed here. So we'll get into that. We'll discard the Fire Energy, I think. Want to keep the Delcatty around in case we want to recycle some supporter cards, and getting into the Nest Ball is perfect. Now we could get the Slugma, but as you can see my Cargo is actually prized, so I'm going to go for the Delcatty play instead. Try and get some supporters back, and we're now in a much better position because we have 2 options for attackers that we can go with. We can go in with our Abomasnow, or we can start attacking with our Swampert. The only downside is that the Swampert is going to be a little bit short of a knockout. With 3 energy on there, we are only dealing 140 damage, which is going to be 20 short of a knockout on this Nidoqueen. So we really need something else to go in there and finish off or do a little bit of chip damage onto the Nidoqueen here. The other option, of course, is hitting with the Abomasnow and hoping that the Nidoqueen just stays asleep, which would definitely be an ideal scenario here. My opponent is dealing a huge amount of damage against our Pokemon, so we need to take this out of the game as quickly as possible, really. Let's promote our Abomasnow, see what we get. We have an escape rope we could make use of, but my opponent's probably just going to put something that they don't really care about, like the other Rapidash, into the active spot. So we're not going to be going for that. We'll just attach onto the active. We'll play out our Delcatty now. And let's see, of course we do have the Professor Kukui, but we have, we have already put up our Abomasnow. We don't have a way of switching out unless we use Tate and Lisa, so yeah, I think that's a bit of a misplay on my part, unfortunately, as we're going to be missing the knockout. If I'd put up the Swampert, I could have got back the Kukui attached energy, we would have been fine. So, misplay on my end, definitely want to watch out for that. I think we'll discard the escape rope here. It's not going to be a huge asset right now, so we'll just draw our 3 cards and get into some extra energy. We also have the timer ball that we can make use of, but again, there's not really any evolution Pokemon that we want, so we are just going to be using our How, I think, or perhaps Lady. We'll go with Lady, since that's going to be thinning the deck overall and get us 4 energy into our hand. So all we have left are supporters and Pokemon, really. And we'll go for the attack. Hopefully my opponent stays asleep here. 80 damage is half of their HP, and there we go. My opponent is just going to wake up anyways, and I think that is going to be game for it, as my opponent is way too far ahead at this point. They are going to be taking their 4th prize card with this knockout, dealing 260 damage. We can promote our Swampert and get a knockout, but as soon as we do that, my opponent is going to have a return knockout with their Nidoqueen or Charizard, whatever it is that they want to use. We have Copycat, but I think my hand is actually bigger than my opponent's hand at this point. And we can attach, we'll go for the How, why not? Let's see what we get into here. We get another Skitty, and we'll go for the Rescue Stretcher perhaps. It's not really going to make a difference, but sure, we'll go for the Rescue Stretcher. And shuffle in a couple of our basics here, like the Snovers, as well as the Mudkip, seems reasonable. And we can also Lure Ball this, see if we can get back our Abomasnow. We'll actually get a bunch of heads, which is nice, so just playing this stuff out because we're not going to be needing it in this game at this point, since like I said, the writing is on the wall and we're not going to have a chance of winning this game whatsoever. So we're just playing out everything for the sake of it, really. Here we go, we can get a decent knockout on my opponent since we did that first initial damage with our Abomasnow. Going to take another water energy off of the prize cards, and here comes my opponent's Charizard. Definitely going to be getting a one-hit knockout as they're dealing 180 damage with 3 energy here, and they also have the second Charizard on the bench which they just evolved into, and here is the second Roaring Resolve. So they definitely have plenty of attackers to finish out this game, as they only have 1 prize card remaining. And there's nothing else that we can do at this point. There's not really any hope for us. We can put up our Skitty and hope to paralyze our opponent. That's pretty much all we have at this point. We'll evolve into a Abomasnow, I guess, and put an energy onto our Delcatty. Put down another Snover. We even have a Kukui that we can use. Why not? And sure, we'll play out the rest of this hand. There we go. Let's see if we get a paralysis. Oh, my opponent dealing that 30 damage. Flipping a tails, so not even the paralysis is able to save us for an extra turn, but even if we got the heads there, I'd imagine my opponent probably has the switch anyways to go into the other Charizard. they're able to use Roar and Resolve. That's going to get them the extra energy that they need to power up this Charizard, and they're going to be able to get the knockout. So some good games here, showed you off how the deck works, as the first game really pointed out the consistency of the deck, how you can take advantage of the weakness against these fire decks, particularly the Charizard decks. But also on the flip side of that, in this game, how we weren't able to get set up as the consistency just wasn't quite there, and we're beaten on that basis, but definitely would have won that if we were able to get set up. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.